Hello and welcome to The Garden Gate. This is Scud from scudpieshow.com, The Garden Gate. Today we're actually not going to be talking about a Pie Show game. We're going to be talking about a new game available at The Garden Gate that is original to The Garden Gate called Beyond the Edges of the Maps. So head to scudpieshow.com, click into the new game menu, and we'll open up a new game of Beyond the Edges of the Maps. This game is a game inspired by the world of Aerwiar from the Wingfeather Saga, which is a great book series I highly recommend, and is also currently being turned into an animated series. So I'll post a link to where you can find more about that in the description. But this game, in the Wingfeather Saga, characters refer to the unexplored land as the places beyond the edges of the maps. So gameplay comes from the idea of sailing and discovering land and exploring unknown territory, and the goal is simply claim more territory than your opponent at the end of the game. Here we see new game. Each player has one ship, and players start in opposite sides of the board. So on a turn, players will take two actions, which is to explore by sea, or I might call it sailing, and exploring by land. These two actions can happen in either order, but it's going to be most common to explore by sea first. So the exception to a normal turn is the first player's first turn, where they simply will only explore by sea. So when you explore by sea, the idea is you are sailing until you discover land. As you move, you will discover land in the space that your ship ends up sort of looking at. So the space that is one step past, straight past your last movement step. For example, this ship ended by looking or facing to the left, and so land was discovered to the left there. So we'll have the other player explore by sea, discover this land, and exploring by land. So when exploring by land, you will add 3 land pieces to the board, beginning by adding one next to one of your peninsula land pieces or an unconnected land piece. So a land piece that is all by itself, not touching any other of your land pieces, or only touching one of your other land pieces. Let's take another look with this player here. So this player has these 2 land pieces, so clicking will show where you can start exploring by land. So we can start next to any of the peninsula land pieces here, and we can, for the second and third land pieces, you simply add them right next to the previously placed one as you go. So when exploring by sea, you can see that you can move between 0 and 6 spaces. So when moving 0 spaces, you can just choose which direction to face and discover land there. So when exploring by sea, finding land or discovering land, if you end up facing off the edge of the board, you will not discover land, or if you're facing your opponent's ship piece, you will not discover land. But if you are facing an empty space, obviously it will become your land. And if you are facing an opponent's land piece, it is taken over and becomes yours as well. Now, when exploring by land, or when discovering land exploring by sea, if there's ever any space that is completely surrounded by one player's land pieces, that those spaces, the group of spaces, will become, we'll say it is fully explored, and it will be filled in by their color. So here, if this player does something like this, they have now surrounded this one single space, and it will be filled in with their color. And the other player can surround a few spaces, or 2 spaces here as well, right there. And it gets filled in. When you surround a when surrounding a larger area, it's possible to surround some of your opponent's pieces. If you do that, peninsula pieces belonging to them will be captured. And then if that creates another peninsula, then the other peninsula would be captured as well, and so on. So a string of land pieces that are surrounded could actually become captured. Fully explored land, or fully connected, which would be land pieces touching at least two of your own pieces, will be called fully explored and will be protected from being taken over. And then, but when exploring by land, you will not always be able to begin exploring from one of those pieces. So that is the difference in how pieces work there. So let's take a look at a game that plays through and talk about some of the rules of what you can't do, which is you cannot end up separating the two ships. So there always must be a path of spaces that connects the ships. And here we see the ships are pretty near each other, but they will become separated in this game, or as far as this goes. And there will be one long path around here that will allow them to reach each other. So here we see players going back and forth, and here this path between them is broken, but this other path exists. And when one player is unable to move at all, then the game will end. We'll pause and back up, because here this move, the host's, the light player's ship moves and no land is placed, because that would put this ship in a surrounded area separate from the other ship. So just simply no land piece is placed when the move is made. So you can still make the move, but no land piece is placed. And another thing to remember is that surrounding spaces, you cannot use the edge of the board to help surround area. So this area here is not surrounded if this were filled in by the host player. This area is not surrounded because the edge of the board is here, and that does not help them fill in and fully explore that land. So we'll see the last move of the game here. The guest player is surrounded on two sides right now, and the host is able to explore this land around them to block them in so they have no moves remaining, and that triggers the end of the game, where the host is the winner with more land pieces. So throughout the game, be careful on whether you're vulnerable to being surrounded. If it's possible, you are down land pieces. And that is a game. Another option of playing the game is on a smaller board, which is 12 by 12 squares instead of 18. And there's another option where you have smaller movement, so sailing is up to 4 spaces and exploring land is up to 2 instead of 3. And that's a great option I've found for playing on the smaller board too. So if you would want to play this game in person, it is designed to be played on a Go board with a Go set. You will simply need each player to have a token to represent their ship. And another option I recommend, so that you can try out currently, and if you play in person, is where you play with dice. So on your turn, you'd roll 2 dice, and you take the high number for exploring by sea, and that's how far you can move, and the low number becomes how many land pieces you can add on your turn. So that could be a fun option to add into the website as well. And if you want that, go ahead and let me know, and we can get that added to try out. This game, as I said, inspired by the Wingfeather Saga. It is an original game, but I imagine it to be a game maybe from the world where characters would be. I sort of I would imagine them playing this game in the background in a tavern, or a background of an inn, or a house tucked away somewhere. So I hope that you can enjoy this game and enjoy the story and sort of picture it in the background with me there. So once again, this is Beyond the Edges of the Maps. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you will join in the Discord from scudpyshow.com. We'll see you at the Garden Gate.